Hi, welcome to Community Builders, a podcast in the Chico community where we look for the helpers. I am thrilled to be joined today by Muir, one of our neighbors on Main Street, proprietor of the bookstore, one of the driving forces behind Chikoko, and overall stellar community member. Thank you so much for joining us, Muir.
Thanks, Dorian.
So I have a lot to talk about and a lot of questions, but let's start with the bookstore.
Whew. I'm there a lot. I'll start there. So my husband and I took over the bookstore about a dozen years ago. It was opened in 1976, and I like bookstores in general. You know, I think they're really important places for communities. They are open to anyone to walk in and, you know, kind of browse and discover new things. And so I feel really fortunate that we were able to take it over. If I go anywhere out of town, I always want to stop into a used bookstore. There are endless books. You never know what you're going to find. There's so many things to talk about with the bookstore right now. I don't know how to do this all in order.
So 76. So let me just take the bird's eye view. How many businesses in downtown Chico have been in continuous operation since 76?
There are fewer and fewer. Yeah. As you know, there are some vacancies down here, and some long time businesses have closed. Mm-hmm. We might be one of the oldest ones, if not the oldest one, in the downtown right now. And so I feel really fortunate to have it. We're holding on to it as much as we can, we love having it and being part of this community. So many different types of people go into a bookstore. I don't know if people realize that, you have your own interests, you go into a bookstore, but you're not seeing, all of the people that walk through those doors every day. So I feel like I'm able to really see where people are at and what their interests are, what they're looking for, and the discovery that they're after. Wow. So it's kind of like a really fortunate position to be in. You can't tell when someone walks through the door what their life has been, where they're at right now. And so it does allow you to build empathy for people, because usually you'll hear a little of their story when they're looking for their book. Yeah.
And I think it's, I love that. I love that it's a space that we're sorely lacking as a society, right? Like that third space is a place to go that you're not going to be, surrounded by the kid gloves of your own tiny bubble, right? It's a place where people go to expand their knowledge, not a place that they go to proselytize the thing that they already know, which is what so much of the world I think has become. People look for a place to go and evangelize their ideas. Bookstore is a little bit the opposite. It's a place where you go to hear ideas, other ideas. I think it's very significant that Chico has a bookstore downtown. And I know we've talked a little bit about that in the past. That isn't so much a thing anymore, that you go to, especially a town of Chico's size, and find a bookstore right in the center of downtown.
Yeah.
Why, and I'm sure some of these answers are a little obvious, but why are we seeing that go away, and why should we try to hold on to that kind of thing?
I mean, I think just speaking on the idea of third spaces, those are so important. Bookstores are one of those places, cafes, bars, your local market. We really have lost a lot of third spaces. And so we can see there are a lot of reasons why there's societal divide, but I think the loss of third spaces is kind of up there with some of the top reasons why we don't reach each other or have grace with each other. And so I think that the bookstore is important, but when we are framing it in terms of maximizing profit, bookstores aren't the top of the list of maximizing profit. Yeah, right. And so it has to have other value built in for people to hold on. And there also has to be landlords that value something useful and long-term and community building in their spaces that they own. And so that's a huge part of it. I don't think that people realize how hard it is to operate a small business. The overhead is huge. But the value to the community is massive. You know, you are talking to your neighbor when they come in, and not having that in certain towns makes a lot of us feel isolated and lonely and kind of confused about what our purpose in life is.
Yeah.
So the bookstore is to renew your purpose in life, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Find your book, get animated, get excited, and then also you're going to be seeing people that are similar or different from you in that space, and conversations are had. You know, people bump into each other, and they're kind of, you know, sometimes they're avoiding each other, and then suddenly you hear a conversation, and there's something to add, or you maybe haven't thought of something in that way before. So,
why do you think some people like to be challenged with things that they haven't thought of before and remain with that level of like open-minded? Some people are so resistant to that, you know, to hearing a new thought or a new idea, and some people run towards it.
Right. I mean, we all have fear. You know, we can pretend that we're like fearless people, but we all carry fear, right? And so we all have to have our own call to bravery, whatever that might mean for our individual path through life.
Oh, I love that.
And so when you are confronting something that is different, it does activate something in your psyche, right? You're like, am I comfortable? And when we are uncomfortable, that's where the most growth takes place. And that growth includes like joy, satisfaction. Avoiding discomfort has caused a lot of issues that we have, where we think that we can stay home and not deal with some of these things. And, you know, those are valid concerns, but I do think that running into some of the places that make you uncomfortable make you have a richer life.
That instantly made me feel like there's a connection between resisting being in any sort of discomfort or uncomfortable situation and loneliness. There's like a real connection there. And I liked the way you kind of framed that as, and so we think we can stay home. Right? And like what better root cause of loneliness?
Oh my gosh.
Right? Is thinking you can stay home and avoid the discomfort.
Right.
But at what cost, right? You're losing the ability to like challenge yourself and to like meet new ideas where they are.
Yeah. And then we can take a little bit more, right? We like take a little bite, and then we can get a little bit more and a little bit more, and realize that it's not the end of the world. You know, like the fear of public speaking for people is larger than death.
I know.
I mean, that's wild, right? Like we keep ourselves so bottled up that we're not living the fullness of our own lives.
Wow.
And each of us has, you know, that little voice like, what if, and these desires, secret desires that we all have. Sometimes they're small ambitions, sometimes they're big. Sometimes it's jumping out of an airplane, or dancing in the dark, or getting on stage, or writing a book. It's any number of things for people, but we have this little voice that says, you know, I'll do that when XYZ, when like I have my life together, when I'm smarter, when I've lost weight, when I'm this age. You know, we limit ourselves so much, and I think having exposure to things that are uncomfortable and feeling like we don't have to be perfect to pursue what we want is the biggest invitation to live our life.
I think that is such good advice. What do you think is at stake there? Like, what are we missing by avoiding this discomfort, right? When you stay home and you're like, you may be very comfortable. You might have your favorite show and your favorite beverage and your comfortable clothes and your blanket, which sounds amazing to me. Like, I don't want to pretend that doesn't.
You want to relax sometimes.
But you're completely right that there's some sort of fear there, right? Of like, that's so safe.
Yeah.
But what am I losing?
I mean, we're so distracted, right?
Yeah.
Like all of us, or almost all of us, are addicted to screens. It's designed that way. And so it occupies this kind of part of our brain that could be occupied in enrichment and, you know, social joy, I guess, and problem solving. You know, when we feel connected to the people in our community, we can do so many things. We can solve a lot of problems that we can't do by ourselves. But we have to be brave. We have to be strong enough to be like, I'm just going to jump in to this deep end. There are other people in this pool with me. You know, we're gonna like make sure no one sinks. But we have to get there first. We can't just hang out on the sidelines.
And that connectedness, I think, is crucial to, it's what you just described as the opposite of crabs in a bucket, right? It's like if you're all in the water and you're trying to pull each other out, it's very different than pulling each other back in. And I think that crabs in a bucket mentality is a symptom of loneliness, of feeling disconnected, of not understanding that at the end of the day we have pretty similar goals, which is part of the hypothesis of this whole thing, and wanting to talk to people of all perspectives, is that I really do think at the end of the day we agree on most stuff, on like what would really help. I want to go further into that, but first I want to cap off the bookstore talks. I wanted to ask you about, you've been there since like before the internet, right? And you've watched things change. I'm curious to see what kind of differences you're seeing. You talked about the kind of micro interactions people have. Have you seen a shift in that? What is the average bookstore customer look like now versus the 90s?
Bookstores are so different, right, from pre-internet. And I think that there's sort of a homogeny that has happened, where people often want the same book. You know, it's not just word of mouth. Now it's like your phone, you know, everybody is reading the same book. So there is a lot more of that sort of like conforming to a particular title that's really popular. But also there is exposure online, right? Like, so you might read about something you've never heard of. I don't know what it could be. It could be a diet that's a fad right now that is going to increase your longevity. So you come in with one idea in mind, you know, and then maybe we have that, maybe we don't. And then there's all the other books that are supportive or in opposition to. I think we have to read literature that challenges our belief system. Maybe it'll change our mind, or maybe it will strengthen our position. That awareness is important. But I think that like bookstores are less populated than they used to be pre-internet. People use them often for other reasons, you know, ducking in to make a phone call, or a lot of families come in, and this is great, you know, they bring their kids, and hopefully they're engaging with their kids with the book. Sometimes they kind of are like, I need a babysitter for a few minutes. That's funny. So there are the same opportunities, but it does look a little bit different in terms of like book clubs and the more limited scope of what people are looking for with like new titles.
I think that's really interesting and tracks. Like that's exactly what I would assume. Do you have a book that has changed your perspective that you wanted to either recommend or say?
You know, it's like such a hard question. I mean, that's like a what you would expect, right? Like, what is the book that changed your life?
Yeah.
And I think it's like there's so many. It's difficult to name a book because it's when you find the book, you're at a particular phase in life. So there are a lot of books when I was a teenager that I encountered that were life-changing. But would they change my life now? I'm not so sure. And it was really this idea about kind of philosophizing spirituality and our purpose. So like Be Here Now was this amazing book for me at 13, right? Where my mind is like blown. And then reading Siddhartha and then Damien. Damien really blew my mind too, because it was more of an acceptance of the parts of life that are darker, that show us the light.
Damien. Siddhartha is Herman Hesse? They're both Herman Hesse?
Yep.
Damien. Okay, I
so
have to check that out.
But I don't think 13, that it would be the same for me, you know, if I read it right now. And I think that's true for a lot of people. You read what's right for you in that moment, and sometimes it changes the course of your life, actually. And then you might revisit it, and you're like, wow, that was, you know, an amazing memory. And now I'm in this other place.
I mean, after my own heart, I'm a huge books person. I'm so thankful we have a bookstore downtown. I think that bookstore is responsible for thousands of 13-year-olds having those epiphany revelation moments where it changes the trajectory of a life. And I really think it's cool to be someone who is curating that shop that influences so many people in that way. Any final thoughts on bookstore? What's something you would love everyone to know about the bookstore? I know you guys are open 10 to 6 every day.
We're there every day.
That's right.
I want people to come to the bookstore.
Come to the bookstore.
Not for me. Although I do want to pay the bills,
but for me,
but really because there is something there for you.
Yeah.
There is. And it has nothing to do with me. Mm-hmm. It's really, I mean, I'm there, I'll open the door, but it's something that you might not even know that you need. Yeah. And you have to take the time to wander around and pick out some books and just read them. You know, just look at something and just get away from the noise. Mm-hmm. So that's all that I have to say. People just need to go, if not even to our bookstore, they need to go to a bookstore. Yeah. Bookstores are important. They are necessary, and they help keep our community together.
And I'm just going to plus one that and say, yes, specifically the bookstore downtown. They have an incredible selection. You guys even do like events. You do poetry readings and things like that. Mm-hmm. Check it out. It is a gem. There is nothing like it in the world.
Are you enjoying the episode so far? Do you want to make your own podcast in Chico? Well, we've got you covered. We have a brand new state-of-the-art podcast studio located right here in downtown Chico at Metric Studios. Do you have a podcast idea? Hit us up today at communitybuilderspodcast@gmail.com and we'll get started with a quick conversation and a free consultation. Now, back to the episode.
Also, Muir, tell me about Chikoko. What is Chikoko?
Okay, so we just had our fashion show called Beast, and this was our 20th year. Not our 20th show. I think we've had more than that. When we started, we did 2 shows a year. Wow. So we are a group of artists. We got together 20 years ago and tried to create something that we didn't have a model for. Wow. Because we were visual artists, we were performers, some of us had a circus school background, and we wanted to do this fashion show, but we didn't want to model it after like high fashion runway. It was very like DIY, fun, you know, bring people in that have special talents kind of event. And so we started that. We called it an experimental fashion show so that people weren't expecting, you know, tailored works on the runway. And then we've maintained that experimental aspect. And I think it has called to all of the members of Chikoko that we want to be experimental. Yeah. We don't want to be, you know, just housed in something super narrow. We did a lot of performances when we started outside of our fashion shows. We did collaborations with other people, fundraisers. We were hired for some corporate event planning. So it's just really been like a full spectrum. We do immersive art installations at the local art galleries. It's just been a lot of fun and a lot of work. And a lot of growth, collaborating as artists. You know, there's a lot that we have to learn from each other. Yeah. And so, when we started, we didn't have any funding to like put the events on.
Where was the first venue and how many people attended the first show?
The first one was at the Chico Women's Club.
Okay.
It was 2005. And the capacity there is a little over 200 people, and we ended up selling all the tickets. Wow. So that was exciting. We didn't know what was going to happen.
I mean, right away, that's a good sign. That's the community saying we want this.
Right? We
want to support this.
Right. It was a lot of fun. And honestly, this type of thing can't grow in a vacuum, right? Like it is on the community to be participants, to be the audience. That's the only way that it exists. There was a certain point in our journey that people tried to make us a business that went on the road and did, you know, like fashion shows all over the country or something. They're trying to make it fit into like a real capitalist box. And we're like, you know, the community is a part of what we're doing, and we're not going to uproot Chico every stop.
It's very culturally Chico. It's the art scene of Chico, like
definitely
come to life.
Yeah.
So for perspective, this one that we just had a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
What was the attendance of that, and where was the venue?
Yes, so that was at the fairgrounds in the commercial building, and it was probably about 1,300 people. So
congratulations. Like, I mean, what kind of events in Chico have that kind of draw? How often is that fairground rented out per year? Like,
yeah,
not a ton.
They do have lots of events, but they're different than this fashion show. For sure. I mean, I feel a lot of gratitude for the community coming out and supporting us all these years, and the productions have grown more expensive, more elaborate, and there's more people involved. And so there's just to see the whole thing unfold and then people show up and then just to watch the show happen is sort of amazing. It doesn't feel like personal. It feels like I'm just kind of like a fly on the wall, just observing the whole thing in a way.
Well, you built it. You built a thing that 1,300 people, which is a considerable percentage of the entire population of Chico. If you talk about the art scene of Chico, it's like almost a majority of that, I would say, that shows up to these events because it's something you built. I also want to shout out who was there at the inception and like who, just to make sure we include everybody.
Of course. So there are three of us now, myself, Nell Adams, and Sarah Rose Bonetti. And we've been there, the whole time.
Who had the circus background?
Sarah Rose has a circus background.
Awesome.
She has helped us do a lot of different things over the years. Tissue work, which is like that fabric that like hangs from a high ceiling and you do like flips and stuff. I never became a master at that. We also had Christy Seashore was one of our members, and Genevieve Dietz, and Michaelin Renwick. So we've had 6 altogether, and we all spent so much time creating this, this show for the community.
Do you guys ever not sell out?
No. Not at this point.
What is
but
it?
I always wonder. It's always a nail biter, right? Because
you're doing it really right, and I think that there's something you're listening and you're hearing what the community is wanting and you're delivering it. And I'm interested to like get a little deeper into that.
Okay.
What do you think it is that is resonating with people? That like people are. Like the tickets go on sale and you can feel it around town. Like the flyers start going up and everybody is talking about it. Why is the community so interested in this event?
There's a lot there because people want to be there for different reasons, and some of them are the same reasons. It's a place that you can dress up very extravagantly. So at the bare minimum, people feel permitted to come out and, they can dress thematically. They can wear something that they purchased at a previous fashion show. So there is permission to really be expressive. And so I think at the very minimum, people are called to that and to have a lot of fun. It's very high energy, high fun, and people are very supportive. I think on another level, there is a different permission, which is that we are showcasing local models. These are not, corporate models. These are your neighbors. They have all different backgrounds, and they are walking powerfully in these really avant-garde outfits and being supported by the audience, who's cheering them, which is very different from a normal fashion show where everybody's very kind of like, somber. And so that encouragement fuels warmth and closeness with the audience and the people that are on the stage. And it gives everyone a sense of like being valued just by existing. Because if you see what these models are doing, they're walking and they're doing a great job, but there's no script. There's no props typically, and so they have to feel okay walking in front of over 1,000 people, just themselves, and feeling like I've got this. I'm enough. I'm enough right now. And everyone wants that, right? Don't we all want to be like, hey, I don't need to wait for something to happen. I'm enough right now to feel valuable. And not only does that enrich that person, but it gives everyone in the audience this idea that, maybe I can do something a little risky. Maybe it's not modeling. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's woodworking. I don't know. But it's that permission piece.
Right. And there's a few things I wanted to pull on there. local models, I think, is awesome. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your casting and audition process. Do you have a hard time finding people who want to do these walks in front of 1,000 people and express themselves? Yeah, so which I think is significant. There's a demand for that, right?
Right. Yeah, I would say the hard part is saying no, right?
Yeah.
Because we do have to say no. But that's the choice we're making by opening it up to see who shows up to audition.
Right.
And then we pull from those people. So where I'm not going down the street like picking people
Right.
to be a model and trying to recruit them that way. So it does mean we have to say no sometimes. Some of the people that come to audition, they don't actually even want to be in the show. They just want to like come to an audition because that's like a first step. Like, you get all those butterflies, and is this kind of scary? You don't know what's going to happen.
Which ties in perfectly to what we were talking about those feelings of discomfort and like putting yourself in that position to get past it. And I think you're right that people have a little bit of an inkling of like, I think I want to try this, but there's a fear and there's like a worry. And anxiety about like, well, what if, I'm not fully comfortable the whole time?
Right.
And it's like, guess what? That is probably going to be what it's like. But that's part of the path to like being connected to your community and like knowing people. And that's what yields that outcome that you were talking about, right? Which is feeling seen and feeling connected and feeling like you're around people who you are comfortable with more so than before those feelings of like of worry
definitely.
About it.
Yeah.
So when you put out a casting call, is it like you have a place and a time? Is it and people mob the building and do they do a walk? And okay, awesome.
All of those things. Were you there?
I was not.
We have an audition day and time and place, and so people show up. They get their numbers. We're inside the building, so we've been doing it at the Chico Women's Club. And we get their measurements, and we get some basic physical data that just helps us with our clothing construction. It's nothing to do with who they are. And then they come in groups, and they do some walks.
Okay, cool.
And there's a surprising lot you can see about a person from the walk,
Interesting.
because they are being thrust into that discomfort, right? You know, you have people watching you walk across the room. Who knew walking was so hard? But it becomes very hard. And then we pick people that we think are really going to resonate with the theme that we've selected, and some of the outfits that we've already been, producing. That's part of it. And also there's something inside of them that's calling to the runway. And that is not something you can, say it's one particular thing. It's just an energy that they're bringing into the room where you can see that they would be a really good fit for that process for this particular show.
They're like star power or like what that factor.
This is like and they get to walk a couple times because the first walk is almost always very hard, but then the second walk you get to see like a little bit more, something shifted in them. Maybe there's a little sparkle in the eye, maybe they have a little sachet that they add. I don't know.
Definitely making the audition sound very fun. How do you choose your themes? It was Beast this time.
Beast.
Before that it was Gravity.
Yep.
Who's the theme person?
We're all the theme person. Okay. We have long brainstorming sessions. And sometimes it takes us like many, many, many hours. We throw a bunch of stuff on the table. The thing about our group is this has been such a wonderful thing for me, is that you can just say the most crazy thing that you want to have happen, right?
Yeah.
Nobody is like, oh, that's too much.
That's too weird.
We might have to bring it down later, but to start with, like, whatever you can imagine, right? You're going to have, like, Pegasus flying from the sky. Whatever. Like, those wild ideas help set the tone for what we actually want and what we can create. And we always are thinking big, and that is what I love about working with this group, is that we don't put limitations on any of it until it's actually time to do the production.
And that's obvious from the shows because you'll pull the literal moon from the sky or really big ideas. I want to switch to talking about the Chico community a little bit, but I want to make sure we close up Chikoko. And I actually wanted to ask, are there any runner-up themes that never made it, that was like your B-side, that was close to making it, that would have been neat?
Not exactly,
Okay.
but we have had some ideas that have never come to fruition, and I'm afraid to say them now
Okay, in
because
case they
maybe
do. Okay.
we never know what might happen.
We'll keep it on the down low then. We'll offline about what this thing is.
all right.
No, but I love that. What's something you want this community specifically to know about Chikoko?
We also have the Bizarre Bazaar coming up.
Yes,
So
yeah.
that's supportive of local artists and vendors, and
Awesome. Tell
that's
me.
one of my favorite events of the year.
It's like a farmer's market of cool art and craft type things.
Yeah, it's at the commercial
Yeah.
building, same thing as the fashion show, like the same place. We have over 60 artists, and it is a juried show, so we have submissions every year, and we do have to say no to some people, but we always get new, interesting artists coming in. And for people who do holiday shopping, I would say that's your go-to. You know, you're keeping it so local.
Yeah, that's your local gift solution.
That is the
Yeah.
local place, you know. It's directly going to an artist who's then going to go, you know, to their local cafe and buy their coffee. I mean, it is just keeping it where it needs to be.
I love that.
Yeah.
Anybody listening to this, if you get the chance to see the Bizarre Bazaar or to attend a Chikoko event, I cannot recommend it enough. It is something that is so core to Chico's culture. Let's shift gears a tiny bit. And as someone who works downtown, who sees people coming into the bookstore, I want to talk about challenges the community is facing.
Yeah.
We can stay downtown specific, or we could just talk about in general. What are some things that you see people struggling with
Right.
in this community?
So I grew up here.
Yeah.
It has changed quite a bit,
Yeah.
you know, and I remember being a young person in the summertime where like when Chico State was out, you definitely felt the small town feeling. And it was actually, there might have been less activity, but I don't know that economically there was less activity because of the third space piece, right?
Right.
People still had to come downtown. So you might need to go to the post office, or you might need to go to the bank. You could not do any of that online.
Right.
And so those small things of convenience have really turned the world upside down, right? Like, I wish that we couldn't do online banking anymore. I know people will be like, no, don't take that
Mobile
away.
banking, yeah.
But it's so key to the pacing of our lives, right? Because suddenly we had to stand in line. And it might be obnoxious and you might need to be somewhere, but you didn't have like your phone with you. You weren't, everyone knew that you were going to be delayed sometimes.
Yeah.
And then you'd be talking to people in line.
Yeah.
We don't do that anymore.
Right.
So that's a big piece that's missing.
I remember my dad like befriending the teller at the Bank of America right here,
Right.
and that being like I would have to go with him on like errands to the bank, and he would talk. And as a kid, I'd be like,
Yes.
you know, why is he talking to
But
the bank
you
teller
hear
or something?
about,
But
you know,
they're
like
learning. Yeah.
Exactly what happened. Your teller's aunt might have had something,
That's
and
right.
that you're hearing about these things. You do not hear that when you're doing your
That's
online
right.
stuff. So that's a big challenge that's facing everyone, but it's facing Chico. We have a lot of growth that's been happening for years and years in Chico, but I don't know how well planned that growth is. And of course, we have differing ideas about what that should look like. And so that's part of the problem. But we have a lot of growth where people are coming here that don't live in or haven't lived in communities that have strong downtowns or strong cores. And so they're kind of continuing some of that, those lifestyle changes.
Right.
So that everything is a little dispersed. And there's a little mania, I think,
I like that take. Yeah.
where people, you know, we feel like in order to have a business, whether that is a brick and mortar or just an online business or the business of self, like, hey, I exist here, you know, let me show you my day. Right. We're all maniacally pursuing just existence and validation for our existence online. And that is leading to a lot of problems.
Yeah.
Like, clearly, right? We have a hard time with the conversations that aren't going the way we can control.
Yeah.
we don't have that sense of like place. There's a lot of spatial confusion, even where people are in a physical space. I see this in the bookstore. People come in and they're like, what is this? And they just start kind of touching and grabbing things because we're so locked into the virtual.
Right. Wow, that's interesting.
And so I think that the dispersal of energy is the biggest problem, because people care a lot in this community, but they're not necessarily on the same page or aware of the other person that's also wanting to make a difference. You know, they're not finding each other.
And so what's the solution to that? How do we help people find that connection? And even if they don't necessarily fully agree on like, this is how we should grow, or this is the change I want to see in my community, and how do we get back to at least being willing to like connect with each other on that stuff? Because I totally agree. There's like this dispersal, right? Of energy, to use your language there, because I think that's accurate. And I agree that like there's this virtual or like screen-based driver to that.
Yes.
How do we come back? And how do we get to a place where we do connect? And is it third spaces like bookstores and fashion shows? What do you think?
I mean, definitely those are great places to start. But I think that, you know, this moment right now where there's food insecurity that is magnified by governmental issues, I have been noticing online a lot of call to action from many different factions. I mean, I think that we online see a lot of cruelty, but I think that most people care deeply about helping others. And when we find an act of service, even if it's small, maybe it's somebody that has, you know, one of those free library stands, and they're converting it to also a pantry. The people are doing those small things, and I think it connects them to each other.
Yes.
And we all really want to be of service, but we are conflicted because we're programmed to be sort of these rabid capitalists. And the pursuit of money is polluting our very existence, right? Yes, we want to make money and pay our bills, but the acts of service are what give us value to our lives. The more money you have, a lot of people, not everyone, they become almost infected with this, you know, cynical virus where they just hoard. And as soon as people start actually contributing any act of service, it changes that dynamic. You know, I think we have to give in order to feel gratified.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that this theme that I kind of keep hearing with the cruelty that we're like really fed online, it creates, because what you were just saying rings really true to me, that we are lonely as a society for those reasons we were just talking about. And when it feels like your way to form connection is to like hate on things online because you're seeing the cruelty so much more, it creates this weird, like you're bonded over what you hate instead of like connected to what's important.
Right.
How did you get like this? How come you care? And what was it? Is this like, were you raised to like look out for people, to build third spaces, to like be interested in the causes of these problems? Or is this something that like you woke up out of the blue one day and decided to do? What builds a builder like you?
Oh my goodness. So I was raised by a single mom, very poor, lots of food insecurity, lots of housing insecurity, kind of a very typical thing in America, right? And I had a small family. I had a grandma that stepped in and was very helpful, kept us off the streets. And I think that my grandma made a huge impact in my life. You know, she was a very kind and generous woman that lived simply. She wanted to have enough food to feed people when they came over. She didn't live in an outrageous way. She lived in a very simple way that to me was like maybe the most beautiful thing, because she wasn't seeking valor. You know, she was doing what was right for its own reward. And I mean, I think that is what we should all be seeking, right? Like, we should do good because that's right and it feels good. We should not be seeking a reward, you know, for doing the right thing.
Should be the baseline.
Yeah. But I think growing up not having anything and being around children that had a lot, I didn't value the having a lot part of it. There was a certain characteristic that grew in some of the people that came from a lot of money that didn't interest me. It seemed, you know, like just a different value system. And I always wanted to help people that that really were like left, that were left alone. They were abandoned. They were mocked. And so that's kind of like where I was drawn when I was a child. I was a weirdo. I think I've always been a weirdo.
Me too.
So I sometimes would prefer like sitting in the corner making art or like writing poems if I didn't feel like the people around me were aligned. Because I didn't want to pick on or bully anyone. And that's, you know, kids do things.
Sure.
Like, you know, they're trying to figure it out. I'm not trying to say that, you know, we can't learn and grow from those things. But I wasn't interested. And so it did open me up to like some of the pain that people experience. There's a lot of pain. Yeah.
How do we teach that to someone who maybe did grow up with a very different set of circumstances and someone who maybe doesn't see the pain as clearly? How do we still teach the importance of taking care of all of us?
I mean, I think everybody wants to be valued for who they are and not what they have, but they don't necessarily recognize that. You know, they're almost carrying a lot more pain and damage because they're living in a transactional world. And so those people break down at night, right? They're the people that when they lose everything, they think that they don't exist or they have no more value. And it's in those broken down places that we learn who we are, right? And so it's not that we break people down. That's maybe not the answer. But maybe find a place where they actually still are feeling vulnerable so that they can build empathy for someone else, you know? And I think that happens. People, you know, they volunteer at a soup kitchen or something, or you walk down the street and you recognize yourself in somebody that is really having a lot harder of a time than you are.
Or a family member or someone you're close to, right? You can make the jump of saying, like, I can empathize.
Right.
Muir, thank you so much for joining us today. I had a fantastic time talking to you. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for keeping a thriving bookstore in our community, for these fashion events and the Bizarre Bazaar, and for caring and for thinking about this stuff. I really appreciate you.
Oh, thanks, Dorian.
You're awesome.